In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Half a day, everyone. Nestor Licanto here for another segment of In Full Zoom. I'm pleased to introduce our guest for this particular show, Charlotte. I was almost going to say your maiden name because I've known you that long. Charlotte Huntsman, right, who is the Vice President and Senior Vice President and HR Manager for the Guam Regional Medical City, and also the outgoing President of SHRM, although your elected president is now the Honorable Dana Gutierrez, so I guess you guys are going to have an election later this year, right?
Yes, we will. Nice to be here.
Thank you. We also have Dora Desamour, who is the HR Director for the SDA Clinic, and Attorney Vince Camacho, who is now the Vice President of SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Managers, or Management, I'm not sure.
Management, yeah.
SHRM is what we usually call it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And of course, the topic that we wanted to discuss today is the impact of COVID on human resources. And as everyone knows, there's been such a huge impact to businesses and employees in particular, a lot of layoffs. And so I'm sure that's creating some issues that you folks have to deal with as HR professionals. So let me start with you, Charlotte. Can you just kind of give us an overview of what you think the biggest impacts of the COVID have had on HR?
It certainly has kept us busy, as you had alluded to. The understanding unemployment benefits and understanding how to apply for that, understanding the new laws on Family Medical Leave Act and emergency leave, those legal issues are have actually had a lot of impact, and positive and negative on HR professionals. In my industry, and I could also speak for Dora, we're both in the healthcare industry. We didn't do any layoffs, or very few. And so that's also been very hard on us as HR professionals, because we continued working throughout the whole the entire COVID months, that at the peak, at its start, at its going down to or decreasing, if you will. So it's been tiresome for a lot of our HR professionals. We also have to we've been looking at remote work for those that are administrative support. So actually looking at what those consequences are for remote work, and ensuring that our staff who are working remotely are equipped with the right things and the right equipment to do their job properly and to be productive. So yeah, a whole host of things that we have to worry about.
Yeah, you mentioned the legal aspects, and I'm glad we have Vince here, who is an attorney, as I mentioned. Vince, can you kind of elaborate on what sort of legal implications the COVID has brought to the HR industry and to business?
Oh, yes, Nestor. I mean, with the introduction of COVID in the workplace, OSHA regulations have been altered somewhat. The Department of Labor discrimination issues, the American with Disabilities Act, the Family Medical Leave Act issues, and just a whole host of upturning the whole legal and employment law landscape, because a lot of the human resource managers have had to turn into mental health counselors, and not only dealing with insurance, but they've also had to deal with employees who are afraid to come back into the workplace. There are legal ramifications. What are the safety standards that these employers have to deal with? So, employers coming back from this stay-at-home orders being released are having to reconstruct office facilities, manufacturing facilities, and stagger work shifts, stagger employees, all in line with not all of them, especially on Guam with our tourism industries, may come back to work because they're just not, tourism is not open yet at this time. So we're dealing, our HR professionals, and I've been busy over the last 3 months in trying to figure out how to navigate these various guidances provided by CDC, OSHA, Department of Labor, in order to help provide a safe working environment for the staff, but also for our clients in the workplace.
Dora, I saw you nodding your head there when Vince was saying that, some employees may be fearful about returning to work. You, like Charlotte, work in a medical facility. Can you tell us about your experiences with regard to that?
Certainly. And Charlotte can certainly chime in at any time as well. We work with the patients who are coming in to be tested. Now we have our nursing staff who are skilled and our providers very well trained, but then you have the front service person who needs to actually process the paperwork. And how do we go about helping them overcome their fear? The professional that you both serve, but your front desk person, they're just coming to work and to do the best, but not necessarily want to risk themselves. So as HR professionals, we have had to actually sit down and have conversations. Conversation has been critical. We had to show them we do understand where they're coming from. We didn't force anyone to remain at work if they didn't want to, but we're really blessed. We have good, dedicated, loyal employees, and they would everything possibly could to help out. We had open conversations with them. Then we also did our best to provide PPEs. That was a new thing for us. We have some, but not to the extent that was mandated as a result of COVID. You have people who are telling you, well, I don't want to go home and possibly pass anything perhaps to my family. What can be done? What do we do? So as Charlotte mentioned earlier, I think we were all working overtime, double time, especially during the height of COVID. It wasn't an easy time, but thank God we're getting there.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a whole new world. I was just thinking along those lines that with everybody walking around with masks now, that's acceptable. Makes it easier for thieves, right? Or robbers, or those kind of thoughts cross your mind. But getting back to human resources, as we mentioned at the top, Charlotte, there's a lot of people that are out of work or were laid off, and hopefully most of them, if not all of them, hopefully will eventually return to the workforce. As an HR professional, how do you handle that when your company is forced to go through that? And most people don't realize that's a very painful process for management as it is for the employee. Can you talk about that?
Sure. And I think Vince had mentioned this about the supporting them psychologically on a mental health issue. And it puts a business in, it puts a lot on a business, because mental health professionals are, they need to be paid as well. But then if you're out of business, I mean, you're not getting any business there. How are you going to support your staff to go to these mental health professionals just to talk it out or whatever it is? So that is certainly an issue. I mean, employees can form groups in which they can, like support groups that they can speak to each other, and of course, probably by phone or by Zoom. So I mean, it really is. It becomes you have to really think out of the box and try to gather all the resources and make sure that everyone is supported all around. I did want to touch on what Dora was saying about those that have lost their jobs. Recruiting is becoming quite a challenge for us, because we try to separate and try to minimize the face-to-face. So recruiting somebody by phone is not the same as when you're doing a face-to-face meeting, right? So they can be really nicely dressed from the top, and then the bottom they're wearing whatever. I don't know what they're wearing, but or just even by phone. You really want to, as an HR professional, when you're recruiting somebody and interviewing somebody, you want to see the mannerisms and all that. So, and you can't really gauge that obviously by phone. And normally when we do a phone interview, that's just the initial part. And then from now on, possibly, you'll just have to rely on those things. So, going back to your original question, these employees will need to learn how to re-interview. How do you interview and how do you project by phone or by video interviews? So there's a lot to learn about this, and there's lots of challenges for these employees that have been furloughed or laid off and going back into the workforce. So there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and this for anyone who wants to jump in. But I know that one of the other things that I wanted to ask about is that all of these employees that were laid off or furloughed, and in particular, for example, Subaki Tower had right before the pandemic broke out, had hired hundreds of people, I guess it was, in anticipation of opening, and of course the coronavirus hit, and they're still not open, and probably won't for a while now. What about those employees? What about bringing back employees? How do they handle, being on the verge of a new job and now not having a job? What would you say to them? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, that is a very...
It's a tough one, right? I mean, what do you say to them? I mean...
Yeah, I think, there's a lot that can be done, but the crux of this is that communication with the employee at the time. I'm sure they understand. It's not, some of the clients that I work with are laying off employees who worked with them for 15 years. And no matter whether someone worked with you for 1 week or 15 years, it's tough on the employer. But a lot of times the employees tend to take consolation. As long as they're kept in the loop, they're made aware of how these layoffs and these terminations come about, and the plan has been laid out to them and communicated to them. Just this week, I've had clients who initiated these meetings with a lot of their employees, and it's tough. But again, the employees, they walked out with their head high and understood the nature of what's going on. And the ability that once things do get back to normal, if they do in those industries, that they have a place to come back to. So it's managing expectations of those individuals who you have to lay off, and making them understand the business side of it. And most of them have, for the most part.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, Charlotte, what are some of the other health safety policies that not only medical facilities, but businesses in general will need to implement for employees and for the customers if they are a customer-facing business? Sure.
We all hear about the social distancing, the 6 feet apart, and what does that mean for our businesses? It's the plexiglass that you have to put in front of any registration or a customer service professional. It is putting hand sanitizers everywhere. So in the hospital, we have hand sanitizers in almost every 10, 50 feet that you can think of, so that all our visitors and our customers and our employees are constantly washing their hands and sanitizing and ensuring that we keep safe and we keep clean. So that, and it's also, as Vincent said, just changing the whole office space and ensuring that there is that safe distancing from other employees, and changing the timing, the shift, maybe a different shift schedule. It's been a little bit, not difficult, but it's certainly, one must have flexibility and adaptability to what we've been doing lately.
Yeah, Vince, can you talk a little bit also about business liability? With the COVID, businesses, I've read that some businesses are fearful about, someone coming and then being blamed for them contracting the virus at their place of business.
Oh yeah, I mean, at this point in time, that's what most legal people who deal with employer issues, but also on the client side. So I'm not sure if you're aware, in Chicago, McDonald's employees have filed a lawsuit against the McDonald's corporation as well as some of the franchisees, accusing or alleging that McDonald's failed to properly educate them on how to protect themselves in the workplace, failure to provide proper PPEs in order to protect them. So this is going to evolve going forward, and by doing so, us as clients of entities have to realize that these adjustments are going to affect both the employee as well as the customer as well as the business, because most of them, if we're at 50% capacity that you're allowed in the workplace, you just cannot accommodate your client base as you used to at 100%. And though that 50% occupancy rate includes your staff. So imagine an employer, if you had a capacity of 100 and now you're down to 50 and 10 of those are your employees, you're down to 40 customers that you can service at a time. And that's where managing time and flexibility of hours and locations of work and providing customer service comes in, and the HR individuals will, try to figure out with management how best to spread those resources out in order to still accommodate the needs of the employees as well as the needs of the clients. Yeah.
And you touched upon it, the online maybe alternatives for social distancing. Dora, as an HR professional, I know that SDA was an essential service or business, so you didn't really have to have less. You didn't close down your business, but can you talk about how the online aspect or working from home will be, you think, incorporated more into business operations going forward?
Sure. So we staggered some shifts where some employees came at one time, or throughout a given week, maybe 3 employees work from home and then 2 come in the office, and exchange that way as much as possible. And we can do that for insurance, we can do that for HR, but our frontline individuals, they need to be there. So what we've done, and it took some time mapping this out to the current ease for patients and also our employees. So we develop a system whereby our patients can go ahead and call in order to do their registration, or we try to limit as much face-to-face contact as possible, even if we have the plexiglass installed. So a patient's car is part of the waiting room, just to help them. And I remember that day when we were implementing that, I'm outside as people are coming in, just to gauge how employees are feeling, how they're doing. Is this okay? Is this working for them? So they would, our phone calls increased, but they felt safer doing it that way, especially for our frontline who could not afford to be at home to check people in. Our providers, a lot of telehealth, where a patient from the comfort of their home could talk with a provider and be assessed and so forth. So we're constantly trying to navigate through this. How do we make sure that we prioritize patients and our employees for their comfort, their health, and their safety first and foremost? Nestor, just one real quick joke. When Charlotte was talking about change, it's very hard, and people don't like change. Most people don't. You need to be flexible to adapt. I remember when I was in the office, someone came and had a mask on, and a hat on, hair was covered, and also pointed something at my temple. I'm like, what is this, a hold up? And they were just doing their temperature check, you know? I'm like, oh, that didn't seem too legit. I said, you're masked. And the person didn't have a scrub on, so it's not even a medical professional. That was just an office employee going around making sure to take our temperature to be compliant. But when I just looked at that, I'm like, what are you doing? Are you holding me up for what? I don't have anything. But although I knew we needed to do that, it's just the mental aspect of actually changing. And it's like, you're here again to take my temperature, right? Are you done for today? No, ma'am. One more time. Great. So it takes a lot of mental adaptability to go through with this, to be consistent. But I think if we keep preaching that we care about you, we need to say, that helps.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah. Dora, do you have any recommendations for those who are out of work now who want to find a job? Do you have a strategy that they can employ to make them more attractive to an HR manager?
Sure, definitely. I would tell such individuals to polish their interviewing skills, to know the industry with which, or the company that they're going to interview with. Sometimes it's work to get a job, and sometimes people go about it nonchalantly, in a nonchalant manner. So I would tell them to make sure they brush up on their interview skills. You can even go online and see some questions that we ask. Do situational questions or behavioral questions and have some good answers for those. You know, when we're sitting on this side, we see tens of individuals, sometimes even hundreds, depend on the position we're looking for. So if they can do those things, and I'm old school, young at heart, but still old school. At the end, a thank you note, you just never know how that could, it shows that you really care about the position. You're really selling yourself, you know, so that I would highly recommend that they do those things, be confident in their skills and be prepared, and that will certainly help them in landing that job.
Yeah. In talking with your colleagues in the HR industry, are you finding that a lot of the companies are needing to right-size their workforce around this time?
You know, Nestor, I have not, SHRM is combined with a chapter. We have so many different industries on Guam here. So I think we're all conscientious that anything we do will impact not only the employees, but their families as well. So first and foremost, I think as much as possible, we try to rally and do whatever we can to keep our employees. So some people, for example, I have heard they've tried to, if you have the skills that are suitable, maybe from this position to another position, they can transfer those ahead that internally, or if they can accommodate by working from home or remotely, they went ahead and did that. In the rare cases where that's not feasible, their plans are to bring the employees back. So I do hear talks about that, but not too much, because I think all of us are really trying to get our employees to come back so that we can help stabilize the economy, our workforce, the economy, and also overall. So yes, there's some talk about that, but I think from amongst my colleagues, we're talking more of how do we retain, how do we maintain, how do we move forward in spite of the challenges.
Charlotte, how about in terms of company benefits? Do you see that companies, because of the downturn in the economic conditions, might have to cut back on benefits such as, and one of the most important ones is health benefits? Are you seeing any of that, or do you anticipate that happening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's actually been happening, but to Dora's point, and I know I can, if I can share, Dora, like her SDA, they continued the benefits until a certain period of time when we didn't know where COVID was going to head to or how long we're going to be in this public health emergency. So there are companies that have kept it as much as possible to keep their benefits as much as possible, and then eventually, let it go. I mean, you'd have to. How are you going to do that? The health insurance is really a difficult one because everybody at this point in time, you don't know if you're sick, if you don't know, you really depend on that benefit. So it's been, and I know it's been a struggle for a lot of our colleagues out there, whether or not to keep that health insurance or to keep those benefits. But as much as possible, at least the ones that we've spoken to, they kept it to as long as they could have from the budget standpoint.
Time has flown, as they always do on these great conversations that we have. We've got just a few minutes left, so I want to go to each of you and ask you if you can give a little bit of a word of encouragement to those employees out there who are struggling, having lost hours of their jobs. I'm going to start with you, Vince.
Oh, okay. I mean, the words of encouragement for employees is, take advantage of what is available, the PUA and the FPUA. Take advantage of what the government can provide. But again, we will reopen. And unfortunately at this time it's slow, but take advantage of those things. Hold your head up high. Do not give up because this has nothing to do with you as an individual. Everyone is sharing in what we're going through, and we will get through this together. I know it sounds cliche, but we will.
And you, Dora?
Yeah, echoing what Vince said, this will not last forever, and it does seem daunting, but the sun rises every day. Well, it rains sometimes too, but hang in there. Each individual is valuable. They bring value, and I don't want people to go ahead and doubt that because they had no control over this. So take the time, know that it's going to get better. It's just a rough patch. They are still employable. Just hang in there. And if your employers are trying to work with you and things are changing all the time, bear with them because they're feeling the brunt of the pressure as well. But I want individuals to know that they are still adaptable and that they can get through this.
And Shari, you got about 30 seconds in the final word.
Okay. Hang in there. That really is the message. Hang in there. This is a chance, if you're not working, a chance to brush up on your resume, brush up on your skills, research employers that may need more employees, but depend on your circle and your family, because it really is. It's just hang in there. We will get over this.
All right, Charlotte Huntsman, Dora Desamour, and Vince Camacho in full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.